Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Foojan Zain, and welcome to the Inner Voice Show, part of the Evolving Mind series in the Togetherness media. This is a show about what matters most in our life: our minds, our thoughts, feelings, actions, relationships, and our fulfillment in this beautiful journey of life. In this show, I'll bring you a conversation with Dr. David Burns. This is actually the third one in the series. He is a professor emeritus of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at the Stanford University of Medicine and the best-selling author of Feeling Good and Feeling Great. Well, we will be talking about how to open up your negative beliefs. Then I'll bring you Kim Stanwood Terranova. She's a counselor, a coach, a speaker, and the author of The Technology of Intention, Activating the Power of the Universe Within You. With Kim, we will be talking about ways you can set your intentions to manifest who you really are. So I'm going to share with you the tip of the week. This week, I've been observing the way people dominate each other's in relationships. I've observed active, passive, coercive, and even natural dominance within marriages, intimate relationships, siblings, and work relationships. I'm sure you've experienced, as a person who has needed or chosen to dominate, the desire to be in control of the situation and, of course, other people. This usually either comes from the pleasure received in experiencing power or the desire to avoid dominance. I'm also sure that you've been a recipient of some of the dominating, right? Someone dominating you. That would have been your first experience. Your caretakers, parents, and older siblings all had the upper hands on that one when you were born. These forms of dominance can take an authoritarian language. The recipient of this form of dominance usually feels fear, a sense of powerlessness, frustration, and ultimately anger. And when it turns inward, depression. There are also passive ways of dominating others. By passively, what I mean is not doing something that the other one is asked you to do. By ignoring them, removing yourself, distracting, changing the subject. They're all those ways of passively kind of like not doing it. This way, the person does not appear to be dominating by their words or their stance. However, they dominate by their passive actions, by defying what is being asked of them. These forms of dominance can also take a nurturing. It's like, I'm asking you to do this for me because I love you, or I feel hurt since you did not do that, when did not do what I asked you to do. So this type produces guilt and fear, frustration and anger on the recipient of this type of dominance. The coercive type is the type that uses compliments and then sideway threats interchangeably to dominate. Sounds like this almost. You're doing such a great work. I'm really proud of you. You must be an overachiever. You know, that's not good. Your mate will really leave you if you don't pay attention to this. So, when all of that is jammed in one setting, the dominator is trying to maneuver from all angles to hit the point without seeming to be harsh. For the receiver, it feels like they're filled with love and care, and that the stab penetrates deep with pain. They don't know what to feel or how they got hit. Feelings of warmth, confusion, fear, annoyance, unsafe all come at the same time. The recipient usually closes up to ensure their own protection. There's also the natural dominance, which one person appears to be so powerful in their stance or presence that without the intention of dominating, takes the space. Others might feel intimidated or have the urge to compete with that power, and that ignites a type of power struggle. We all have experienced being on the other side of dominating and being dominated. When we become aware that although it is a natural day to day phenomena, it can be beneficial when it ultimately leads to the benefit of all participants. When dominance is used in any relationship as a tool to use or abuse the other person, then it gets a huge backlash by losing the other person, whether that person is a mate, a family member, a friend, a coworker, or an employee. On the flip side, we can allow ourselves to be dominated when we feel safe and can create trust for the person who's dominating, that they want the best for us. If we see that a person can no longer be trusted, then we can set our boundaries for them. Live your power with honorable intentions. It will be permanent. Pretend to dominate, and someone will overpower you soon. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Dr. David Burns. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Inner Voice Show. And I'm Dr. Foojan Zain, and I'm excited to have Dr. David Burns with me. He's an adjunct professor emeritus in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at the Stanford University School of Medicine and the author of the best-selling book, Feeling Good, The New Mood Therapy, and the Feeling Good Handbook. And we are all lucky that we're actually going to have Feeling Great coming in September, and Dr. Burns is working also on a great app, Feeling Great app, which will be coming up. So, Dr. Burns, you've been busy.
Yes, I'm 77 years old, and I think it's the busiest time of my life and maybe the most creative time of my life. I'm just really grateful to have people like you to do some recordings with, and a lot of great colleagues here in the Stanford area and Los Altos area, just all kinds of wonderful projects. But I'm always happy when I'm working with you.
Thank you so much. I always learn so much from you. We've been having different talks and series about how is it to look at a scenario outside in the world as it comes to us, and really look at what to do with our emotions, what to do with what shows up for us, and also what to do with the thought process and negative belief systems, and how it is that we distort them, how it is that we make them so negative, how is it that automatically it shows up, and then we kind of run with it and do much more with it than it is. And how you, with your model team, TEAM, kind of like dismantle these type of negative processes. And for all of you who are viewing us, we have done 2 other ones, so look for them on my YouTube channel, that you are working through one of the sessions that you've had with someone, and we're kind of like following through with that. And today, in this episode, we're going to look at how to open up the negative belief systems and the distorted ones. And here you go with all that you're going to do with it.
Yes, and I might also say that with the new team therapy, I look at the psychotherapy as a procedure that you do on one occasion, like a surgical procedure. It isn't something that stretches out for weeks or months, but like it's kind of one and done. And that doesn't happen 100% of the time, but it happens to me about 90% of the time, that you can complete the treatment in one session, which is a new breakthrough. And then afterwards, the person, you may do some relapse prevention training, or if they have some other things they want to work on, they can. Most of the time they don't. But that I'm excited about too, because I've been working my whole life to see if it'd be possible to develop an ultra fast treatment for depression and anxiety, and I think we're pretty close to having that now, or we do have it now. But at any rate, we're working with Taylor. Her husband is an ER doc. She's at home with her 3 children, worrying constantly about him. He's living, 6 or 8 blocks down the road in a different apartment because he doesn't want to catch the virus at work and bring it home and infect his family. And so they're separated, and she's crying herself to sleep every night, worrying that her husband's going to die. And her thoughts do not result from the situation, but from her thoughts about it. And those thoughts, as it turns out, are quite distorted. She's telling herself, I shouldn't have to do this alone. I can't handle parenting alone. I shouldn't burden Greg with my negative feelings. I shouldn't share my negative feelings with him. I need to be strong and tough. This is just to remind you where we're at. I'll let my patients down. She's a psychologist. She's doing teletherapy. She says, I'll let my patients down if I don't have enough time for them. I'll lose Greg. He's going to die. I shouldn't have to do this. I should be able to work and have him come home and not have to work on the front lines. And she believes these thoughts between 50 and 100%, most of them in the range of 70 to 90%. And if you don't believe a negative thought, it won't upset you. Now, I asked her, now that she's decided to tone her feelings down, she doesn't want to get rid of them completely, because we showed that her negative thoughts and feelings are showing beautiful things about her, and we don't want to blow them out of the water entirely. The thought she wanted to work on first, and this is really all I can help a person with, is to help you with maybe 1 5-second moment in your life when you were giving yourself a negative thought that disturbed you. And she said, well, the thought she wants help with, I shouldn't share my feelings with Greg. And this is very crucial, because she's been hanging on to all of this grief and kind of hiding it, telling herself, her next thought, I need to be strong and tough. So, and she believed that thought, that, 50% that I shouldn't share my feelings with them, 80% that she should be tough, 70% she believes I shouldn't burden them. Now I said, what are the distortions in that thought? I shouldn't share my feelings with him. And they're right on the back of this form I use called the Daily Mood Log. They're in a box, and you can just read through the 10 distortions and see which ones there are. Should we do this together? I don't know if you remember the names of the distortions right off the bat.
I can start reading it. I think one of them is all or nothing thinking.
Yeah, now let's see. I shouldn't share my feelings with him. You could consider that all or nothing thinking. Tell us why that might be an example of all or nothing thinking.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Tell us why that thought would be an example of all or nothing thinking.
Which thought?
We're working on the thought, I shouldn't share my feelings. That's the first thought she wanted to work on. And we're looking at the distortions in that thought.
Well, there's a shouldn't that comes with all of her emotions. So it's not like I can share some parts and I can keep it. She's saying all of the thoughts and emotions that she's having right now, which is overwhelming, she shouldn't share anything. And that's where it becomes all or nothing, versus maybe assessing and picking some of them and sharing it with her husband to make her closer and to release some of this, and then keeping some that she might think might overburden her husband.
That's excellent. It's a great example of all or nothing thinking. I actually hadn't picked that up. I just added that to our list, but you're quite right in that. And then some other distortion, she thought it's a classic should statement. I shouldn't share my feelings. And a lot of our suffering comes from these shoulds. And that goes back to the Buddha talked about that, Epictetus talked about that, the feminist psychiatrist Karen Horney talked about the tyranny of the shoulds. You say, I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't do that, and you're kind of beating up on yourself when you use should statements. It's also, she said, it's mind reading. That's another one of the distortions. She's assuming that Greg can't take it if she were to share some of her negative feelings with him. And she doesn't, and mind reading is, she doesn't have any evidence for that. She's just kind of jumping to conclusions. It's also a distortion she decided called emotional reasoning. When you reason from how you feel, I feel like I shouldn't burden him, so I shouldn't burden him. I feel, like I shouldn't have these feelings, type of thing. I feel like maybe a good wife keeps her feelings hidden, or some such thing. She's reasoning from how she feels. It's also self-blame, because she's beating up on herself, and it's also mental filter, because she's probably filtering out times that she has shared her feelings with him and it's been perfectly okay. And once you identify, go ahead.
One here, which is discounting the positive, which
Yeah.
she doesn't realize that actually sharing some parts or all of it with him, that it would bring them closer together. They would connect them. and that maybe her husband has a lot of these feelings, and if she also shares it with him, that they will bond, and he will think like, okay, I've got somebody at home that really knows what's going on with me.
I love what you're saying, and I didn't have discounting positive on my list, but you're absolutely right. So I just added that. That's a great enhancement. And then I said, now how would you talk back to this thought? What could you tell yourself instead? And the positive thought has to be 100% true, or it can't possibly help. It also has to crush the negative thought. The moment you stop believing the negative thoughts, in that very instant, you will change. So that's what I say when I say you can recover from therapy, from depression, not after 10 years of therapy, but you can do it in 1 minute. The very moment you stop believing the thought that's depressing you. So she came up with these positive thoughts. It's okay to share my feelings. And she believed that 100%. It could bring us closer together. It's like you read this, but you didn't know this. It's fantastic in light of what you just said. That's what she came up with. Yes, she believed that 100%. And she said, I'm human, and it's okay to be struggling with negative feelings given these circumstances. And she believed that 100%. And then she also told herself, Greg loves me and I matter to him. And she believed that 100%. And then I said, and the reason she could come up with that so quickly was because we did that positive reframing in the last episode to get where she starts embracing her negativity. Then it comes really easy to crush these negative thoughts. And then I said, now how much do you believe I shouldn't share my feelings with him? And she said, it's down to 5%. And I'll keep it at 5 because, like what you said, maybe there's some feelings I wouldn't share, but for the most part, it's okay. I'm going to take a chance. And then once she blew that one out of the water, we just did a little role play, and I became the negative Taylor, and hit her with the rest of her negative thoughts, like you shouldn't have to do this alone. And then she just crushed it. You shouldn't burden Greg with your negative feelings, and she just crushed it. She was able to just now crush these thoughts that have been causing her severe panic and depression for weeks. And then I told her, your patients are going to feel like you're letting them down if you don't have time for them. And she said, well, that's ridiculous. I've got great patients and I've had plenty of time for them. She just got super strong. And she pretty much blew them all out of the water. And it took about maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. And then, she didn't believe them anymore. And then I said, now, the end of the session, how are you feeling? Remember, her depression had been 100. She wanted to go to 50. It went to 15.
Wow.
She wanted her anxiety to go from 100 to 20. Remember, she was in panic, sobbing for an hour every night. It went to 0.
Wow.
Complete obliteration. Her feeling bad went from 50 to 0.
Amazing.
Her loneliness, her abandonment went from 90 to 20. She achieved her goal of 20. Her hopelessness and despair, she wanted to go from 90 to 25. It went to 20. Her frustration, she wanted to go from 100 to 5. It went to 10. And her anger, she wanted to go from 100 to 50. It went to 55, and she was fine with that. So she met or achieved her goals for all of these negative feelings. And in tomorrow's episode, you will hear the surprise ending to our story.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I was, as I listened to you, showed up for me is that sometimes when we have our own thoughts and emotions, we see them as very personal and as if, I'm the only one who has these thoughts and I'm the only one who's, came up with this. And then sometimes when we talk and look at it as a pattern of thinking, that isn't like, oh my God, this is a novice thinking, but it's a pattern of thinking, and not
Yeah.
only my pattern of thinking, but that's just human beings' pattern of thinking. Then it's a different way of looking at that, because then we could find ourselves in a pattern. We could kind of like dismantle that pattern. We could look at it as, It's not that personal, and we can open it up in a different way. And then I also see that maybe I have fallen into a pattern. And then if I choose not to fall into the pattern of, for example, the shouldicism or overgeneralizing or catastrophizing or, any of the ones we talked about, it's more than, okay, I'm choosing not to be a part of the pattern. I'm choosing to look at this as an individual base and see if it fits for now with the reality of now, and how can I look at it in a different way, which then it kind of like shakes it off from where we got rigid in different patterns.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly what you're saying. And we're all different. We all have different ethnicities, age, circumstances. The details of our lives are different, but in our suffering, there's an awful lot that binds us together. And then what I want to give for the patient is a little set of tools that works for that person, because after you've recovered, you'll fall into these black holes over and over again. And then I'll give you a little ladder. So whenever you fall into that black hole, you pull your ladder out and then you climb right back out of it. And everyone's ladder is a little different. The tools that help each person are always a little bit different, but it's such a great thing to be able to give people joy and relief from suffering so quickly. I dreamed of being able to do this my whole life, and I finally, now that I'm an old fart, I finally developed those tools, and I'm trying to teach them to other people as best as I can too. But it's so exciting, to see someone like Taylor crying herself to sleep every night, and suddenly all of that angst is gone. It's like a miracle, really.
That's where feeling good and feeling great really shows up, and it really says what it is. Like the word really puts into the state of the being that the person is. Thank you so much, Dr. Burns. I always, again, I said I always learn from you. And for all of you who are viewing us, please remember that we've already had 2 episodes before this. This is the 3rd one. Look for the 4th one coming up. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello, I'm Dr. Foojan Zain, and I'm a psychotherapist and a life coach. If you are experiencing anxiety, depression, loneliness, isolation, fear of what's going on with all that's going on in the globe with the coronavirus, what's going to happen to you if you've lost your job and you have a lot of anxiety and you don't know what's going to happen to you and your family, if your kids are at home and you're not used to it and you have no idea how to handle them, if you're working from home and all the structures have changed and you don't really know how to concentrate and restructure and motivate yourself, I'm here for you. Call me and let's have online therapy for anyone who's in California and online coaching for anyone who's in the world. Go to my website, foojan.com, Foojan.com, and let me be a support to you through online therapy and coaching. I'll be looking forward to hearing from you and being a support to you. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Dr. Foojan Zain, and I'm excited to have Kim Stanwood Terranova. She is a committed guiding person who guides people in fulfilling their greatest destiny. She's a counselor, a coach, speaker, an author, and a spiritual leader. Kim has been doing just that for over 25 years. She has immersed herself in the study of practice of universal spiritual truth and wisdom with a degree in spiritual studies and as a licensed practitioner of truth through the Agape International Spiritual Center. Today, we will be talking about her latest book, The Technology of Intention, Activating the Power of the Universe Within You. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here with you. Thank you. Thank you.
It is wonderful to be with you. I went over your book and I felt light. I did. There's a lot of the conversation of intentionality that I also bring in. I have a psychological model that I use for, depression, anxiety, trauma, self-esteem. And intentionality is a cornerstone that I have actually used. And when I saw your book, I was like elated, like all my cells of my body, like, oh, we're going to get the technology of intention here.
Yes, thank goodness, right?
Yes. You talk about the power is within you. And you say you hold the power to your destiny at the touch of your fingertip. It's in your every breath. So tell us about intention.
The technology of intention is one of the most powerful tools we have. And I love that it's the cornerstone of your work as well, because it has been for mine for a lifetime. And I know that each and every one of us has within us, within our DNA, the ability to create our lives. And as we simply lean into that remembrance that we have that ability, we are conscious creators, then we could lean into a pathway that truly is our very breath, our fingertips, and what is it we wish to create. Intention is our guiding light in that creation. So when we know, what is it I wish to create? Is it a life of bliss, of financial abundance, of divine partnership? When we can really get clear on this is what I want to create, then intention is the key that lifts that desire into a reality, into our existence. Because without it, it just is a floating wish or desire without a propelling motion to push it into action that lines up with the universal presence that is unlimited. So the intentionality of moving our desires into just a reality that's what's at our fingertips. It is our very breath. And we get to wake up to that possibility every moment.
Kim, it's really interesting that when I haven't really worked with my intention, it feels like you're sitting in a car and then kind of allowing traffic to take you wherever, versus sitting in the car and like knowing where you're going. And regardless of the traffic and whatever is happening out there, that you deal with whatever is happening, but you actually create a guide, like where you talk about guiding light, where you're going further and further. So it's really important for us to be aware of that, because when we're not aware of it, it just kind of like flows. It takes us wherever the world takes us versus us to take us wherever we want to. In your book, you say the tools that awaken our soul and mind into the tools that keep us present and available for more good than we can imagine. They include and expand beyond meditation, prayer, visioning, gratitude, acknowledgement, transformational breath work, visualization, and yoga, and yours and my favorite.
Yes, these tools are, I kind of look at it that we have a tool bag upon us. I always feel like I've got a tool bag, and it's the more I am cultivating these tools, then they're always at my grasp at any moment, that whatever confronts me. And I love how you look at it as we're driving down the road. Are we participating in that driving? Are we surrendered to victim consciousness of I'm caught by traffic, I'm stuck in this dilemma, versus I may be in traffic, but I'm moving through it. That takes a tool, whether it's an affirmation, whether it's an intention, whatever it is, for us to vision that I'm on the other side of this traffic, or I'm through this challenging point in my life. But if we're not activating those tools, we're asleep. And that is where I feel like we always have the opportunity to wake up every day again and again. When we don't use our tools, it's understandable why we're asleep, because we're in a world that is very thick right now. And to move through that thickness, we have to be awake. You know, I feel like I'm really working with my clients and individuals to say it's imperative that we stay awake and alert and on a razor's edge of what we are creating, because the world is depending on us right now. And we are, as conscious creators, connected to one another. When we start adding intention to what it is we wish to create, then we can move mountains. And if we have a joint intention for world peace, for divine connection, to live as one, to really truly move as one body of consciousness in a world of individuals, just imagine that intention on a global scale. So we can take our individual intentions and really take them out to have impact in the world, which is what I'm very interested in, because that requires us to be awake and to love each other, to stay awake, to not judge each other, but to really walk as, okay, I understand it's challenging. And what do I know? And which tool do I grab? And which tool can I help you grab on this day for whatever you're in the midst of, whatever I'm in the midst of. That's the possibility that exists right before us right now.
Absolutely. There's there's two things that I wanted to ask you. One is that you in your book you talk about intention versus expectation, and I know that a lot of times when there's a conversation about manifesting your intention, so you have your intention and you work through in order to manifest that, but then sometimes it becomes like, and I did everything that I was supposed to do, and I thought about it, and how come it's not happening? As if, like, we were promised. Somehow there's a promise there that if you do, you're going to get it. So there's a distinct difference between the intention and expectation. But I also wanted to add something here where I really want your opinion, which is there are like hidden intentions or secret intentions that we have, like multiple parts of us might have different types of intentions. And I say this is because sometimes, like, you go in with this type of an intention, and not just manifestation of like wealth or particular result, which is a tangible result, but it could be just like in relatedness. Like I would have an intention of wanting to connect with you or create something with you, and then suddenly, like, the result isn't that. And sometimes I go back and look, and I ask my clients and people I work with, well, look at the result and look at what other intentions were an action where those intentions actually actualize without you knowing, because the result is that. And this intention, when you were holding, it didn't show up. Like you had an intention of, I'm going to win this game, or my ego is feathered up and I just like don't like you anymore, and I'm going to prove to you that I don't like you. And somehow those other intentions show up in a hidden way, and those are actually creating the result in front of you. And if you had, no, I'm just going to be loving and accepting, doesn't show up, although you think that's what your intention is. Can you share a bit about that?
Absolutely. I love the way you described that, because in it was those, you're describing where expectations reside, where they hide within us and we don't even know they're there. Again, back to the importance of staying awake. So I will always say that intentions are always in the present moment. They're always positive, and they're always based in qualities, not outcomes. Expectations very often can be based on an outcome that we desire that's outside of us. Someone else must be a certain way, or a certain situation must occur for us to be fulfilled. That is where we get tripped up in not even realizing we have expectations, whether it's from my expectation it's going to look a certain way. And I love how you said, if you go back and ask your client, where did the intention get fulfilled? Because very often, if we're writing a super clear intention, and I love, my intention is to connect with you. My intention is to connect, to be open, to be fluid in the dance of all that must be discussed today. None of that is based on a result. The expectation that, well, we have to discuss this at this exact time, and I'm going to say this or that, all that leads to disappointment, because that is something that's based outside of us. If we're truly in the intention to connect, we will connect just as we are. And when we know that, wait, that's my guiding light, I could drop the expectations that anyone or anything outside of me has to look a certain way. When we let go of that, then we're in the present moment to really create together. So when someone says, but Kim, where do I have expectations that I don't even realize it? I'll giggle and say, have you had an upset that someone didn't text you back fast enough today, or an email didn't get returned to you in a speedy time? And they'll say, yes. And I'll say, well, that's a hidden expectation. We could understand it. We would like that to occur. But if we're basing our happiness, our fulfillment on anything outside of us, we will be tripping down the road of expectation and disappointment. The beautiful thing is, all we have to do is think, what's my intention? Intentions keep us out of expectations. And when people connect those dots, like, oh, if I write an intention, then I'm out of expectation. Absolutely. Then you're knowing that I'm co-creating. I'm not creating by an expectation, which could lead to disappointment. It's part of the reason I love them so much.
Yes. So you say conscious creation is name it, claim it, create it. I love this. Name it, claim it, create it. So,
Yes.
so the trick is also, as I'm asking you to show us, is how do you have that clarity
Mm.
that if I have this intention, that I'm also aware of the hidden ones so that I can manage, take care of myself with these other ones so that this intention as I have it is clear, crisp,
Yes.
clean, clean, so that
Beautiful.
I can name it and claim it and create it.
Absolutely. So lots of times when we're unclear of what it is, the very first intention is for clarity. Like to know my intention is for clarity on this project. My intention is for divine clarity of what I'm to express in this meeting I'm walking into. When we begin with clarity, Spirit always answers. We will get clear. And then we're to follow that clarity that comes. So say that what comes up is to be communicative, open, to bring forth divine conversation in an expansive way. Then if we follow that intention, it's not even as if we have to manage any hidden expectations. The power we have to stay in this intention. My intention is to bring forth divine communication clearly, openly, in a connecting manner. That intention will literally be the aim, so everything else falls off. So we don't even have to give attention to anything but our intention for Spirit to just ride along with us to fulfill it. Does that make sense?
What I'm hearing from you is
Yes.
that if I keep myself in the clarity of the intention that I would like to manifest and don't shed light on the other ones, that this intention will become crisp, clear, and clean because I'm paying attention to it in the present moment. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. And we get really gentle with ourselves to release the things that do not need to be carried with us. When we can gently say, and my intention is to let go of anything that doesn't serve this intention, that our let go creates space that instead of giving attention on the things we don't want, we simply exhale and know those aren't serving me right now. If I can come right back to what is my intention today, everything supports that. So that the gentleness of our soul to know, okay, we're the things that I have concern about, I'm going to keep loving myself right through my let go of letting go of them. You know, it's the gentle and tenderness with ourselves for to neutralize the chatter of the worry and get back to our intention just as smoothly as we can. But we have to be gentle with ourselves. If we have judgment on, oh, look what I am doing, then we're holding energy again.
So this is how I'm sensing it. Um, I had a really, really awkward meeting a couple days ago, a business meeting,
Mm-hmm.
which it just blew me. After 1 hour of that meeting, I was feeling ugh,
Mm.
ugh, and I was feeling fear and anger and plain ugh.
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm not wanting anymore to have anything to do with that group, I'm sitting there, and obviously my anger is coming up. I'm making everybody wrong. I'm making myself wrong, and I'm da 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 da. And then at one point, it's like I got to respond, and so all the wrong stuff comes into my head. I'm going to respond this way. Da, 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 da. I'm going to tell them specifically how bad and wrong they are. And then I kept sitting, and I'm like, but that's not my pure intention. Like, that's not who I intend to be in my life. That's not how I intend to deal with human beings. And
Right.
I just don't want to even make them wrong. I want to honor them where they are, and I want to honor myself where I am. Kim, it took about 2 days
Mm.
for me to go, ugh, and then like, here, this is the intention that I want to live, ugh, and then coming back. And finally, like last night, I was able to sit in that, the pure intention that I have of just loving and, setting boundaries with love. Like, this is what I
Yes.
want, and I honor you. And finally, the email went away, in that format. But I was watching these two, a couple of different intentions kind of like taking over me constantly, from back and forth. Can you
Yes.
can you share your view
Oh,
about that and give
first, I just thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that because that is a human experience that we all go through, every one of us. And the fact that you observed it is like to be celebrated. When we can observe something, I'll say to people, let's rise up to the observation deck. Just observe that that's happening, because there was a reaction happening, but something was telling you inside, this isn't a right fit. This isn't a right fit. And so all those feelings that were coming up were reacting to an intuitive nature within you, which is such a gift. And when we look at, oh, let me be gentle with myself, that my intuition is telling me something. And sometimes it does take, good that it only took 2 days versus 2 weeks. Like many of us, we could hold on to it because of all the work you do with so many people, that you could, my sense is that you could watch it and then you know that, okay, I'm going to keep letting go, keep letting go. That is where I feel like gentleness is the order of the day for all of us. And with lots of my clients, I'll watch them be hard on themselves, to really be like, oh, but I didn't do it right, or I should have spoken up, or I shouldn't have said so much, versus this is what I felt. I observed myself in it, and now I get to back up and really know, what am I hearing within me? Now let me have a clearer intention. So maybe it is now to trust my intuition and to speak clearly in divine articulation as I deliver the news that we're not the right fit. And then we go right into the practice, which at the end of my book that I love, which is about acknowledgement and gratitude. Then I'm going to acknowledge myself for giving myself the time to watch that gently, not react, respond, let go, begin again. It's our practice. How can I move through a situation, respond with an intentional action, acknowledge myself, and begin again as gently, gently, gently as I can? Because then we're going to be gentler with everyone else when we're gentler with ourselves.
And I even watched myself going, like, taking the easy route. Well, I'm just going to lie and say such and such in order to get out of it. And I'm like, well, then that's a cop out. I mean, you've decided that your intentionality is to be clean and clear,
Yes.
not lie. You don't want to muddle your own energy. So I'm like,
right.
What are you going to say? And part of it was interesting because I was still caring of not wanting to hurt them. Like, how do I say it so it doesn't hurt them? And this dialogue was really interesting into finding that clarity of intention.
Yes.
And keep going back to an intention that I had set for myself of, what kind of a human being I intend to be. And I watched all the other parts of me come in order to protect me, but
Yes.
in all the other ways that I necessarily did not want to.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. It's just like, that's the dance. It's so great that you observed it. That's what that's my intention, is to keep observing when I get hooked so that I don't react to the hook. I find a way peacefully to move through it. That's perfect. And that's my prayer, that we all do that.
So tell us also about how the technology of intention can be utilized in different types of relationships, like intimate relationships, businesses, finance, our
Absolutely.
body, the way we are with ourselves, addictions, different types of things, which we might, just like how I was experiencing, have all of these types of dualities.
When intentions are to be used across the board in every situation in life, I've been asking my children since they could walk, what's your intention? What's your intention? Because I want them to be conscious of what they're creating. So if we're walking into a personal relationship, I'll ask couples to come in when I'm counseling the two of them, and I don't start a session without saying, what's your intention? What's yours? So I understand where they each are at. So then we have a guiding light of the direction we're going, and I have a format to keep coming back to bringing them to their intention. And then I'll ask them, do you have an intention together? It's beautiful in divine partnership if there's our intention in this relationship is this, and that we really write out, what are the qualities of that? Is it to always communicate clearly, to be calm and kind and loving, to stand in integrity and honesty, to be willing to have hard conversations? If a couple is writing an intention like that, then they have the through line in their relationship that all their actions come back to that. Same in business. I have businessmen that I'll say, please don't even walk into your business meeting, your huge board meeting, without setting your intention first. What is it you wish to create? And when we ask that question, what do you wish to create? And if they say, I want to get this project up and lifted, then I'll say, how about divine communications? You want to connect in everyone, create a safe space so everyone can be heard. And when they back up and say, yes, I want all that, and I want completion of this. Great. Then the intention is to be connect with all that I walk into talk with, to create an open, safe environment for us to all be heard, for me to share my proposal easily and effortlessly and lift it to the next level of expansion. You walk into a business meeting like that, you just create harmony and clarity. Lots of times I'll ask people to announce it. What's your intention before you start your board meeting? I have to tell you this, I was asked to walk into a divorce situation years ago, and it was the mediation, and all the lawyers were there. And I said, as long as the lawyers are fine, that I come in. And they said yes. So I walked in, huge room, very tense. And the first lawyer that was leading the whole thing looked at me and said, why don't you begin, Kim? And I thought, beautiful. Said, how about, can we agree today that our intention is? So that's how I started. Can we agree that our intention is? And then what rolled out from me, because it wasn't written, I was listening to spirit, but it was to do with the qualities that these two individuals really desire to have in their divorce. So can we agree that our intention today is to speak calmly, clearly, with love leading the way, that we are open and receptive to hear one another easily and effortlessly, to come together and find divine resolution so that we can complete this divorce with kindness and ease as everyone fairly walks on the next direction of their lives. Everyone stopped and went, we can agree to that. And I went, beautiful. So that's our starting point. So if there was an upset ever, and there's only one in that time, I was able to go, let's just remember what our intention is. And then everyone came back to it. So see, whether it's business, whether it's personal relationships, whether it's our body temple, what do I wish to experience? I feed my body temple what it needs to nourish it, that I exercise easily and effortlessly to love this body. There's nothing occurring in our lives that an intention will not propel it into a more expansive manifestation if we're activating the power of it.
Beautiful.
That was a long answer.
That was a beautiful answer. So, in the very short time that we have left, there's two questions that shows up for me. One, is there anything about intention in your book that we haven't shared that you want our audience to know about? And then in the time of pandemic that we live in at this point across the world, how can your book support us to pass through these times effortlessly?
Beautiful. Thank you for asking that. I believe that's what most important is for each and every one of us to know that this is not a difficult journey to live a life of intention. It's truly what we came here to experience, is to create our lives in the manner that we wish to live them. Intention is the key to do that. And it's written out so clearly. My intention in the book was, here's a roadmap for you to read it and understand, oh, I can live by intention, and I can do it with these steps, and then practice all the opportunities to stay centered and live a life of practice while your intentions manifest. It's easier than it can be expressed, and I invite everyone to truly practice it. In this time in human history, I think it's imperative, absolutely imperative, that each and every one of us practice whatever keeps us centered. So whether that is prayer, intention, meditation, hiking, rushing into the ocean, whatever it is that keeps us centered and plugged into the universal consciousness that we're all connected. So for me, it's through the path of intention, and I see that for just millions of other people. Whatever it is, that for us to really see clearly, to make choices that honor ourselves and every individual. You know, I say my intention every day is to truly hold the space that healing is happening on this planet now, that those across the world that are needing food, health, that all hospitals have what they need, that everyone's tummies are full. But as I hold that intention, it's an energy going out into the world of acceptance. I don't need to know how. My job is to know and to live in the truth that it's possible. So I feel that if we're all walking just linked together to know that, yes, it's a challenging time, but we are big, bold souls that can rise up in practice And this will not be a challenging time for long if we're in deep practice as one community of global citizenship. So these are the tools that I know can get us there. So of course I speak of them a lot and love them and practice them with every breath I take.
Yes, and it's an intentionality of being respectful and responsible and accountable,
Absolutely.
not only for ourselves, but for every other human being that is around us and in the world. So together we can pass through this. This is one of the things that it's almost like not only the way we are, behaviorally um, can be healing each other, because
Yes.
the pandemic is also showing us how much with just our breath we can also kill another human being, and
Mhm.
how responsible and accountable can we be about
Beautiful.
our power in that way, and how we can
Oh,
utilize our power in a whole different way.
I love what you just said, how responsible and accountable we can be, that we are to be. This is why we're here. And that's why we need to stay awake to these kind of conversations and to keep having them
Yes.
every moment. Those in my life know that I just keep having these conversations.
Yeah, and having that clarity of the intention of being in the health for all of us.
Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for spending your time with me and everyone who's listening and
Thank you.
viewing us. It was a pleasure to have you.
It is my joy, and I'm honored to be with you. And I thank you for everything you're bringing to this earth. And I'm just happy to be here with you.
Thank you. So, everyone, Kim Stanwood Terranova, please get this book. It's an amazing book, The Technology of Intention, Activating the Power of Universe Within You. And you can go to kimstanwoodterranova.com to know more about Kim. So, thank you again for being with us. And for all of you who are with us, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And
Mm.
until next week, bye bye.